professions are born to understand how much a single component, single customer will cost in a complex cloud environment. And it's becomes very complicated to efficiently manage your infrastructure while maintaining the business needs.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Let's talk about developers. Meet Maxim Melamedov, CEO of Zesty. Maxim is a husband and father of 2 sons. He aims to surround himself with people who are passionate about shaping the future, love to learn about work and life, and see the joy of being a part of a great team. Today, he is the CEO of Zesty and started it with a clear mission to help engineers automatically keep their cloud infrastructure up and running while staying within budget. On a personal note, Maxim definitely curses too much and waffle between believing that it's a gross deficiency or a great trait for which his grandchildren will fondly remember him. Meet Maxim. I really appreciate you coming because I know how busy it is, and I can only imagine how busy it gets running a company that has raised a significant amount of money, $35 million just in the most recent Series A round for some fantastic partners in the ecosystem, doing something that is not just innovative, but I think is also just interesting in the way that is enabling other companies around the world to develop technologies, cloud-based infrastructures. We've been hearing in the last few years about what's been happening with DevOps teams and the shortage of understanding and manpower that we have in managing the cloud infrastructures. And so I'm really curious to pick your brain as to where this industry is headed and what's happening today, especially with Zesty. So Maxim, thank you very much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Founding of Zesty, and you yourself, were you always into cloud infrastructure and this type of work?
No, actually, my background is a bit different than your typical entrepreneur, especially in the cloud infrastructure space. I come from an entrepreneur family. My dad is an entrepreneur. He founded a business in the Soviet Union, which was a socialist state. But, it was always in the veins and it was always in the family. So my mom had a business and my uncle has a business. So I was always surrounded by entrepreneurs. And I started my first business after I finished my army service. It didn't went as well as I wanted. And then I spent 5.5 years in Homeland Security, traveling to interesting countries, doing fun. And after that, I decided that, it's time for me to learn what it means, a startup, what is a startup, how a startup is structured, how it's built. And I spent around 3 years in the startup world doing customer-facing positions. I went from a support team lead to VP customer success. And at that point, I understood that, there is a problem that I saw in both chairs. I saw the impact of the problem in both chairs. I understood that the partner that in this journey is the right partner through the same mindset, but a very completely different skill set. And we understood that, if there is a challenge that everybody's facing and it's big enough, and it's in the most innovative, proven technology, this is time for us to jump out and start our own journey.
Right. And so you're entering this journey besides, with a great team and with a great place. Where are you specifically in your own sort of career trajectory as you're starting this journey? Are you starting it out with anticipation for what type of milestones you personally want to achieve, or what types of things what types of strengths and weaknesses you may come in with?
Yeah, I understood that at the end of the day, I've learned a lot from my previous managers in, I would say, in all of my positions. Two of my managers that hired me and managed me throughout my career are actually currently working with me at Zesty.
Amazing.
At the end of the day, the weaknesses that I have are I know most of them, and the way I overcome them is I bring people that their strength is my weakness. So it creates kind of a puzzle where we complete each other from a skill set standpoint, but the bigger value, the important things, the mindset is very, very similar. And
Very, very cool.
it's kind of creating this puzzle of mapping the right people and getting to know them, getting to understand their priorities, to understand that your priorities is identical to their priorities or as close as possible. And this is in a way how we build the company.
Amazing. Now, if we're looking at Zesty now from 30,000 feet in the air and we're looking at the cloud infrastructure space, how would you define the space today or the problem space that we're in as we're now entering 2022? And pretty much we understand that the vast majority of the world will, if not is already, built on cloud infrastructure.
So if we go back a bit in time, you would see that AWS came and said, well, we have a lot of spare computers. We needed to have that for Amazon. Let's try to, to offer that to the market. And with the same philosophy of Amazon, AWS was actually born of offer new technologies, more efficient, closer to the customers, and the customers will come. And on that philosophy, you have Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, IBM, and other cloud providers are actually pushing new, more efficient, more innovative technologies distributed all over the globe, trying to get as closer as possible to the end user, trying to achieve a better performance and a more efficient way that would support innovation. And this has been going since day one of the idea of a public cloud. With that in mind, the adoption of the new technologies or the new infrastructure, this is where it gets interesting. In order for a company to say, "Hey, I want to use this, I want to use that, I want to do something, I want to try out," it lands on the plate of an engineer. Now, if this lands on a plate of an engineer, it lands along with development, with testing, with security, with compliances, with all a bunch of other aspects that he has on his plate. And it comes down to, well, I have this, I have that, I have to prioritize. What is more important for me to maintain my business, to achieve what is business requiring for me to do? And the struggle of the engineer is actually deals with prediction. Because cloud, in theory and in reality, you have unlimited scale. You can scale as much as you need. You have unlimited infrastructure. Right. But it's down to the engineer to predict how much infrastructure the business would require at any given time on a CPU, RAM, block storage level. Now, it's hard because, business is changing. You have different trends. You have different use cases. You have billions of different capabilities, of different workloads that serve different purposes on the cloud. But all of them, in essence, run CPU, RAM, GPU, network, block storage. And it's hard, right? And the mistakes that the engineers are doing, the human mistakes, the price for them are heavy one. Because if you under provision, right? If you guessed wrong and you don't monitor that part of your application, you'd have degradation of performance. Your application would not work as fast as you expect. You have customer frustration. It may actually crash, waking up you in the middle of the night. And you have to figure out how to firefight that. And the way to firefight that is to say, well, I don't want to do it anymore. I would take a bigger buffer. And when you take a bigger buffer, you have the finance team, you have the budget controllers coming and saying, hey, listen, we're not utilizing that, so you have to shrink it back. Now, not everything can be shrunk. And you constantly located in this endless loop about you predicting, you provisioning infrastructure. You're not being an engineer, because to predict and provision infrastructure when costs are associated with that is a completely different skill set than a typical engineer has. So new professions are born to understand how much a single component, single customer will cost in a complex cloud environment. And it's becomes very complicated to manage, to efficiently manage your infrastructure while maintaining the business needs. Because at the end of the day, engineers are there to serve the business.
Right. Completely. Now, if we're looking at the space today, obviously, a lot of people are understanding that this is where the world is headed, and this is what needs to be done. How do you make sense of everything that's going on around us? Because like Zesty, we have other players that are coming in offering similar tools, and sometimes even for me as an engineer, and I love this type of thing, it gets confusing making sense of what is the right solution for which company. So even putting Zesty aside for a second, how does one, perhaps a R&D manager or manager of the DevOps team within an organization, how does one even go about trying to assess what is the right tool for them? And more importantly than that, what is the right issue that they're trying to solve within their organization?
So in regards to cloud costs, I hope it's not far-fetched, but it's kind of similar to security. You have more than one place that you need to do something to make sure that you are in a happy place. You have endpoint security, you have zero trust, you have different layers. Same goes with the infrastructure. You have your application layer, you have your infrastructure layer, you have your kernel layer, you have your operating system layer, you have a lot of layers where one can say, hey, I can do X, and if I'm doing X, I would be able to save money, save time, be more efficient, get more for the dollar I'm paying. So it's not a one-stop shop for everything. It's complicated.
Right. And so if you're looking at now Zesty and your strategy to be a player within this market, as you communicate with customers, what is sort of the process that you go through with potential customers as you're trying to discover together what is the right solution for them and whether Zesty is the right solution?
So the way we are going with customers is we're trying to identify the pain, because it always comes with how often that happen, how often does this happen, how successful are you by achieving this. At the end of the day, it's very easy for us to explain technology to the engineers by saying, hey, do you do X, Y, and Z? Yes. How often do you do that? Like once X amount of time, often. What if I'll tell you that we have an algorithm that does that every minute, every 5 minutes? So it's more accurate, right? It gets you smaller granularity. It achieves better results. So it's not something that I'm telling you like a black box that does voodoo magic. It's on the contrary. I'm saying this is exactly what our system does, or as much as possible in proximity levels, but it does it more frequently in smaller granularity, achieving better efficiency. So try it out.
Right. What is a growth strategy for a company like this? What if you're thinking, 2, 3 years, into the life of Zesty?
So, in a way, we have, I would say, three main drivers. The first driver is the cloud provider themselves. They are very keen to make sure they have happy customers. So we are leveraging cloud providers, marketplace, and we're leveraging our connections with them, and actually they're promoting us. So this is one pillar. The second pillar is to build a relationship with managed service providers that are helping small, medium enterprises to actually build their product in a right way during the initial parts of the cloud journey. And the third, which I would say the most important one, is actually focused on the journey and the brand. We decided that we need to go and understand and live engineers day to day. How they think, how they like to consume information, what types, where. We understand that engineers, the last thing they want is to have someone else picking into their infrastructure, looking into what they're doing, because it's sensitive data. So we're trying to create as lean and as simple exploration process where don't give us anything, just go look into something that you already have and possess. Look at your reality, but from our point of view. And if you don't like your reality, well, you can have us look into you can invite us to look at your reality and show you how we can make your reality a bit better.
Right. The role of brands within the types of companies such as Zesty. You're talking about, trust and brand identity, and it feels like there's a dissonance here. On one hand, it's not a traditional D2C or B2C company, and it's a deep tech company. On the other hand, you do want people to trust you. As the CEO, as you're moving forward and striving forward, how big of a part is this when you're focusing the company on brand identity versus the importance of the technology or the importance of the growth of the sales teams? Where is it in line with all these different priorities that you might have?
So when you're small, you have to win. I cannot expect to have people that identify the brand, identify the logo, can go in and log and start reading content. It doesn't work like that from day one. So you have to write your content. You have to start positioning yourself as a company that knows the pain, that understands the pain, that understands the day-to-day of a DevOps, that understands the day-to-day of engineers, that speaks engineering. Now, while we do that, we do need to have a go-to-market team that does traditional B2B. Because we need to get the logos, the early adopters, the early users to validate that the story we're telling, it has roots. And this is how we are actually are able to scale, having validation from the cloud providers, saying, hey, this works. We have happy customers that can validate that Zesty adds value. We have people who are reaching out to prospects. We're trying to build a brand from an outbound perspective. With that being said, we are creating content. We are doing thought leadership pieces on how we perceive the world, or what challenges we see, and how other people see the challenges, and what it means to innovate. And hopefully we would be able to build a user journey that is compelling enough, simple enough, that resonates with a large audience of our community.
Fantastic. Maxim, I really want to thank you for spending this time with me. Like I said in the beginning, I know how very busy you are, and it sounds like Zesty is is yet another amazing story here from our ecosystem about building amazing companies that are leveraging very, very cool technology to enable other companies to also do the same, and at the end having an impact within a ripple effect. And obviously Zesty has seen some tremendous growth recently, and congratulations again on your recent raise, and it was fantastic getting to hear a little bit small part of your story and your value of what's happening now. And so thank you very much, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Michael.